All right, Sam, let's go through the rules here. We're building the best offense, best defense that we can each find, that we can each build. We're going to go position by position, and we're going to alternate the first pick at each position. We'll start on offense. The only catch is if a position has two. We're going to draft two receivers, two edges, two defensive tackles. We get to snake that position. So if you get the first pick, I get the next two, and vice versa. You got it?
Yeah, it's more complicated than it seems like it should be, but I like it. Let's go.
All right, we'll talk you through it as we go. Well, I won the coin toss here, Sam. Tails never fails. So I have the first pick. We're starting with quarterbacks. My first pick for my team, it's Patrick Mahomes. Big surprise. We're going with Mahomes at quarterback, best QB in the world.
Right. The obvious pick and the correct pick, let's be honest. Mahomes is the best in a tier by himself. My second guy, though, the guy that I would go with is Josh Allen. I still think that when he's on, he provides the highest ceiling of any of these other guys. He can go toe-to-toe with Mahomes, and he is unstoppable from a defensive perspective when he's playing his best football. Arm, legs, got the whole thing. Josh Allen.
In an offseason where an NFL executive said he was overrated, can't win the big one, can't make it to the Super Bowl, you're still taking Josh Allen over some of the other guys?
Yeah, because his defense collapsed in 13 seconds, so Josh Allen is a failure. I mean, that's what we're analyzing at this point. Remember, Josh Allen scored in that game. He did his job. The Buffalo defense was what failed with 13 seconds left on the clock.
All right, so you're up now at running back. You get the first pick at the next position here.
Yeah, I mean, last year, the year before, maybe I think this would have been a bit more of a discussion, but right now, Christian McCaffrey is the obvious and only answer, kind of the same way Mahomes is a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree on McCaffrey. I mean, workhorse, running, receiving, the way the Niners offense has taken to the next level with him and Brock Purdy kind of, happening at the same time. I think that is the obvious pick. My running back pick is not obvious. It would be obvious if he was not hurt last year, but I believe in the superhuman recovery effort of Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is out there squatting about 1,000 pounds, coming off his knee injury, and when he is healthy, let me say this, Nick Chubb's career has been what people wanted Saquon Barkley to be. The big plays, averaging over 5 yards per carry. Nick Chubb is probably the best pure running back as a runner, as far as maximizing what's there and also having that big playability. So I'm banking on Nick Chubb being healthy again.
I mean, as a huge Nick Chubb fan, I would love nothing more than for that to be correct and Nick Chubb to actually justify that spot. Obviously, the knee injury is terrifying in terms of what he's going to be going forward. Such a huge, catastrophic knee injury. But man, that guy's special when he is healthy.
All right, next position group is receiver. So I get the first pick here. We're each going to take two receivers. We'll have a flex player later. We each get to take two receivers. I'll take the first pick. You get the next two. So my receiver pick, I'm going with Tyreek Hill. And I've said this for a few years now. He is the guy I think that makes the biggest impact on any offense other than quarterbacks. Tyreek Hill as a deep threat that the defense has to take care of, has to keep an eye on, has to add an extra defender on the back end. And he's also the guy that if I wanted, Tyreek Hill could play the slot, be a high-volume slot receiver. I could use him on trick plays. If I just want him to be an outside receiver, he's plenty valuable, plenty dangerous. Tyreek Hill would be the guy, the one receiver that I would want to build an offense around.
All right, I'm happy because I get my number one guy with the number two position. I'm going to take Justin Jefferson, the other guy that I think that's the discussion, right? Do you want Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson? Like Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson can win everywhere from all alignments at all levels of the field. Obviously, he doesn't have Tyreek Hill's pure, explosive, raw speed, but he's just so good. You watch his highlight reel catches, that catch against Buffalo in a critical situation, it still looks ridiculous. He's going to catch the ball. You watch that tape, and it's still insane. You can't work out how he managed to come down with the football, and he's got a whole highlight reel of those plays. So Jefferson is my top guy, and then my second receiver, I'm going to grab A.J. Brown from Philadelphia. Huge body, big, strong, powerful. Again, just physically overwhelming for defenses to have to go up against. Look what he did last year against poor rookie Emmanuel Forbes for Washington. Just bullied that guy into a huge day for the Eagles.
I think you picked the right guys. The next 2 and 3 with Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown. I'm debating. I initially was going to go CD Lamb with how he developed last year, his ability to win inside and outside, but I'm going Jamar Chase. I didn't want to have this oversight of not having Jamar Chase as my number 2 receiver to go with Tyreek Hill. I think Chase's big playability, similar to Tyreek Hill, his ability to win down the field, his feel at the catch point for separating late, breakaway speed, but also Jamar Chase, I think, showed over the last couple of years if he needs to be a high-volume slot receiver too, if he needs to be the guy that's getting 12 to 15 targets a game, he can also carry the load in other ways. I don't think it's his skill. I don't think it's best for the Bengals offense when Chase is catching a whole bunch of short passes, but I think he's capable of doing that, moving around and winning in different ways. But I like Chase and his ability to flip the field and pairing him with Tyreek Hill. Next position's tight end, and you get the first pick here.
All right. I am going to take George Kittle. I know most people will look at Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce is phenomenal. Number one, he didn't play like Travis Kelce for most of last season. Now, he was able to turn it on in the playoffs, and maybe he still got that, but that would concern me a little bit given his age. Remember, he's 10 months younger than Rob Gronkowski, who's been retired twice, including for years at this stage, and Travis Kelce's still going. So you've got to expect at some point him to slow down a little bit. And then the other point is, I think the only thing really separating George Kittle from Travis Kelce-like production is the fact that the Chiefs need Kelce to be that guy more than the 49ers need. Every now and again, you get a game where George Kittle, the offense has to run through him because other guys are hurt, and Kittle goes off for huge numbers, 3 touchdowns or 200 yards, but they don't need him to do it every week. But he's got that kind of ability, incredible receiver, incredible blocker, which is something Kelce is not. I honestly think Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL. He just doesn't produce like it because the 49ers don't need him to.
I think that's really the key. The Shanahan offense and all of those weapons that they have there probably limit what Kittle's able to put up from a numbers perspective. It's tough to argue with that. I still think my guy's going to be Travis Kelce, even at this age. He's the type of guy we talk a lot about, like, as guys age and they get injured, how well will they age? I mean, I think Travis Kelce's ability to just understand the game, his savvy, how much of that is just his connection with Patrick Mahomes. But Kelce feels like the guy. He's going to produce right up until the day he retires, even if he loses a step or two. Obviously, he's going to be more limited as far as the run game goes, but it's all right. He's my, movable chess piece. He's still great after the catch, and he just has that natural feel for getting open and being a high-volume tight end target. I mean, beyond that, I think, guys like Mark Andrews deserve a mention, and Sam Laporta as a, next wave of tight ends. But I think for now, it's still Travis Kelce. It's offensive line time. So we're going to, each position, we're going to go left to right tackle one by one. It's my turn to go first. So my left tackle is going to be Trent Williams. Best left tackle in the NFL. Mauler in the run game. We talk a lot about the Shanahan scheme. It's a good fit for Trent Williams, too. He was with Shanahan back in Washington early last decade, and he was awesome then, and he's still awesome now. Excellent in pass protection, aging extremely well. Trent Williams, just a dominant left tackle, and he's my top guy.
Are you factoring in, though, that the NFL is going to be cracking down on that illegal cheat motion where Trent Williams getting a little head start towards the line of scrimmage? That's a big factor in what Trent Williams is going to be doing highlight reel-wise.
Might affect a few of his plays, yeah.
Trent's phenomenal. I think he is the right answer at left tackle. I do think, though, there's quite a lot of options to be the next guy, though. If you're, Andrew Thomas from the Giants, Christian Darrisaw for the Vikings, there's quite a lot of these young, really good left tackles in the NFL right now. The one that I would go with, though, is Tristan Wirfs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, right tackle for his first few years in the league. Incredible at right tackle. Arguably the best in the NFL right off the bat. And then they flip him to the left side, and he's just as good there, protecting Baker Mayfield's blind side. Just got paid big money this offseason. Tristan Wirfs is as good as it gets. Phenomenal pass blocker, really good run blocker, incredible power. I think he's the guy.
Yeah, not easy to flip sides that late into your career. I mean, 4 years into your career, but you don't see that often. Wirfs did it in college, did it well in the NFL as well. So that's our left tackle spot. We're up at left guard, and you get the first left guard selection here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Joel Bitonio. Elite pass blocker for his entire career. Really came on as a run blocker in the last few years as well. Just a top-notch player at that spot. I think there's a couple of places you could go at left guard, but Bitonio is the one I'm going for.
All right, I'm going to go Quentin Nelson here. And he's a guy, if you look at, say, the PFF grading over the last few years, he went from this elite level to just a pretty good level. But I'm still buying into Quentin Nelson as an elite player. Again, there's been a bit of a drop-off in his play. He might not be on that same Hall of Fame caliber trajectory that we thought he would be on as a dominant run blocker and a really smooth pass protector, but I think he still has it in him. So I'll take Quentin Nelson at left guard. That brings us to center, and I'm not going with the chalk pick here, Sam. I'm going with just a guy I love. I'm not going with the consensus top center in the NFL, but give me Tyler Linderbaum from the Ravens. Still young, early in his career, heading into year 3. Think he's still on the ascent. And I just love his skill set. The best part about him coming out of Iowa, zone run blocking, his ability to get out of his stance, so quick off the ball. I think, what did I call him? An offensive weapon coming out of the draft. Because you can run a little pin and pull, get him out into space. As an offensive weapon center, give me Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah, I'm actually calling an audible now from my notes. I had Frank Ragnow written down, but it's because in my brain you took the best center in the NFL, but you didn't. You took Tyler Linderbaum. So I'm actually going to take the best center in the NFL. Now that Jason Kelce is retired, I don't really think it's up for debate. It's Creed Humphrey from the Kansas City Chiefs. So Creed Humphrey is going to be my center. Absolute monster as a run blocking center. More than good enough as a pass blocker as well. Creed Humphrey, I think, is clearly the best center in the NFL. So again, I get the best guy.
It could have been
number 2 pick.
Could have been Creed or Ragnow. I mean, I think those guys are the top 2 centers. I have a soft spot for Linderbaum, so I had to put him in there.
That's okay.
All right, you're up. Right guard now.
You
get the first
only
right
helps
guard
me
here.
out. You feel free to keep taking your favorite players. I'm all for that. Right guard. It would have been Zach Martin for basically the majority of the last decade. I don't know that it is anymore. I think he might have declined to the point where he's not the top guy anymore, and that probably leaves Chris Lindstrom from the Atlanta Falcons. Former first-round pick, just keeps getting better. Maybe he's been protected or boosted a little bit by that run-heavy scheme over the last few years, and this will definitely be a new challenge for him and the rest of that Falcons offensive line overall. But I think really until we see evidence otherwise, Lindstrom's probably the top name as the best right guard in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and so, I was debating now between Zach Martin, who you're right, he's dropped off a little bit, but future Hall of Famer, I believe, Zach Martin. Still think he's good enough. I was debating between him and then the next wave, Quinn Miners from the Denver Broncos. I'll go back to Zach Martin, though. I think he's still more than good enough. He was the guy when Quentin Nelson, my other guard, when Quentin Nelson was coming up, we said it'll be a Zach Martin type of career, right? He'll be elite pretty much from start to finish. That's what Zach Martin has done in 10 years in the NFL. So, yeah, give me Zach Martin. Again, all-around game is still there, even if he's a tick below where he was a few years ago. And then wrapping up the offensive line, we got right tackle. I know where you want to go in right tackle. I have the first pick, and so I think you're going to be happy as well, because I'm going to go Penei Sewell from the Detroit Lions. I think Penei Sewell, he's the new breed of the top right tackles in the NFL. And, we've been hammering this for years, Sam. The right tackle's not a different skill set, right? It's not just the big plodding 350 pounder. It's a position of equal value to left tackle. So Penei Sewell is a left tackle body and skill set playing right tackle. His movement skills, getting out into space, very well used by Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions. So love watching Sewell and his highlight reel in the run game. Doesn't lose often in the run game, doesn't lose often in pass protection. So Penei Sewell's my guy both now and for the future.
Yeah, Sewell's an incredible player, and I think definitely if we were building teams for sort of the next 5 years or beyond, Sewell, I think, would be the right pick. But just for this year, for the right now, I think Lane Johnson's resume is still phenomenal. Like his ability, his production, the level he is still at, I think makes him still the best right tackle in the NFL. Johnson has always been incredible for the Eagles. The difficulty of assignments that he gets relative to some other offensive tackles is insane. And this is, a years old dynamic. Remember when he was just left basically one-on-one with Von Miller, when Von Miller was at his peak and Lane Johnson was able to shut him down and to combat him. I still think he's the best right tackle in football, even if he's reaching the age now where that might not last very long.
All right, we can wrap it up with one flex player, Sam. Any position, you got the first pick here at flex.
Well, I guess the ultimate flex player in today's NFL is Deebo Samuel. So I'm going to take Deebo as my true flex option for this offense. A guy that can play in the slot, that can play wide receiver, that can play running back in the backfield. Whatever you do, Deebo is an absolute playmaker. And I think we saw last season the impact he has on that 49ers offense. When Deebo was out, that's when the 49ers went on that run of losing games that wasn't simply running into elite teams. I mean, they were losing to teams like the Vikings because Deebo Samuel wasn't in the offensive lineup. So incredibly important playmaker, unique weapon, a true flex option for the offense.
Yeah, I mean, that is the perfect flex. It's tough to beat Deebo Samuel, right? He's a running back. He's a receiver. He's a mismatch weapon. I was thinking more, give me a slot receiver here. And
right.
So give me Cooper Kupp, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp, if he's going to be healthy, we're a couple years removed from one of the best receiver seasons of all time. He was uncoverable, helped that he was in an offense that featured him, that moved him around, put him in the slot, gave him stacked releases, but he's got speed, sneaky speed, Sam, right? Because he only ran in the 4.6s, but he plays faster. But he's got that quickness and just the feel, right? I got him, I got Travis Kelce, I got guys who just know how to get open. So give me Cooper Kupp as my flex option here.
Whoa, before we go on, we're also now contractually obliged to point out that Amon-Ra St. Brown should absolutely be in that conversation to be
part of
that flex offense.
St. Brown is in.
He's in now. Okay, we've made the change.
I don't want to get fired already. I might put he got paid. He'll be all right. His feelings won't be too hurt yet.
Yeah, I think he's doing okay.
It's my first alternate. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. I had the first pick on offense, so you get the first pick on defense. We're starting on the defensive interior, so you get the first pick here.
Yeah, starting with the big guys up front. Obviously, for years, that would have been Aaron Donald in an absolute no-brainer, slam dunk first selection. Absent Aaron Donald, I think Chris Jones is the guy that got closest to bridging the gap between regular human beings and Aaron Donald over the last few years. Jones has become now the best defensive tackle, the best interior defender in the NFL now that Donald is no longer there. An absolute wrecking machine, one-on-one, unstoppable. Lines up out wide as well, is a unique, versatile weapon in terms of being able to line up all over that defensive front and win cleanly against offensive tackles, guards, centers. So Chris Jones is my guy.
And then I'll get the next two picks here. One game we're going to play on Check the Mic, Sam. I want to play this. Okay. How many times you mentioned Aaron Donald? How many years into the future will we still be getting Aaron Donald mentions? Not, it's not a knock. I'm just saying he's that special, and, we always have to throw a bone to Aaron Donald. You pay that respect.
I mean, you're still bringing up John Skelton, and he was a terrible quarterback that played a decade ago. I'm talking about arguably the greatest defensive player to ever suit up in football.
That was one obscure mention of John Skelton. You don't need to bring it up again. All right, I got the next two picks at defensive tackle. I'm excited about this because I've got Dexter Lawrence, the best nose tackle in the NFL, and then Jalen Carter, the next big star at defensive tackle. So Dexter Lawrence doing stuff that no nose tackle maybe has done in NFL history. Let's be serious here. We don't really have the hardcore advanced PFF type data before 2006, but how many true nose tackles are getting into the backfield as often as Dexter Lawrence? We're talking tripling and quadrupling pressure totals against all other nose tackles in the NFL. Absolutely wrecking games. So give me Dexter Lawrence. Interested to see what the new scheme looks like and how much he's featured over the center versus actually moving around, because I think he can do it all. Dexter Lawrence, he's not just a pure nose tackle, but I want that dude on my team. And then Jalen Carter, it started out really strong, faded a touch last season, but I think he's got that Chris Jones type of ability as an unstoppable pass rusher who could be a force in the run game. So give me Dexter Lawrence and Jalen Carter as my two defensive interior picks.
Yeah, definitely can't argue with Dexter Lawrence, and I'd love to pair him with Chris Jones. I think that would be a phenomenal duo. Carter's interesting because obviously incredibly young, but insanely high ceiling. I'm going to take Quinnen Williams, though, as my next guy. I think Williams has become really the player that Jalen Carter, I think, is probably trying to become, that consistent, absolute game wrecker, both the run game and the pass game, generates pressures, makes stops in the backfield. Just incredibly good guy. Across the board to try and stop as an offensive line, as an offense as a whole. I think most of the time you would expect Williams to be a better player this upcoming season than Jalen Carter, but maybe Carter does have a higher ceiling.
No, it's a good pick there. I like the group of interior defensive linemen around the league right now. A couple other good names that we could have chosen there. We're moving on to edge rusher now. So I get the top pick at edge. You'll get the next two. I think you and I both agree. Myles Garrett is the top guy, and it's not that it's miles apart, no pun intended, from some of the other guys in the league. But Garrett, we're talking play for play, unblockable, especially rushing the passer, but even in the run game as well. Myles Garrett is the guy that I think puts the most fear into left tackles. And he's doing it against left tackles. He's doing it against what is the perceived best blocker on opposing offensive lines. The NFL generally still puts their best pass blocker at left tackle, and Myles Garrett still has insane production. And this used to be, remember people would say, well, PFF loves Myles Garrett. They're the only ones. He doesn't get as many sacks as some of these other guys. Well, this offseason, we saw the players, for whatever it's worth, vote for Myles Garrett as the top edge, and we saw NFL executives vote for Myles Garrett as the top edge rusher. So even though I think it's close at the top, and there are some insanely talented players on the edge in the NFL right now, Myles Garrett's the top guy, so he's my top pick, and you get the next two.
I think that's the key, though. There are 5 guys for 4 positions, essentially, in terms of elite. Any one of those guys in a given season could be Defensive Player of the Year, right? And this was the same with All-Pro last season. There were 5 players for 4 spots. So somebody's going home mad and upset and snubbed, and that's just the reality of the world. It's impossible to get this correct because 5 guys really do justify that spot. So you got Myles Garrett number 1. I do think that is the right pick. My 2 guys, though, the next 2 picks, Micah Parsons and then Nick Bosa. Micah Parsons, day one was getting comparisons to Lawrence Taylor. And a lot of people listening, maybe you're too young to kind of remember Lawrence Taylor, what he did, the impact that he made coming into the NFL. But he genuinely changed the game. He was like a player that nobody had ever seen before and completely wrecked offenses. Micah Parsons was getting those comps from day one, and they weren't crazy. He was just playing at a different intensity, a different speed, a different level of explosiveness and violence to other players, even at the NFL level. And he's still doing that. He's only gotten better year on year. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal player. And then Nick Bosa is the one that last year was kind of flying under the radar because he started a little bit slowly, right, in terms of sacks. Only had a couple of sacks early in the season, and then by the end of it had caught fire again, and is genuinely just this phenomenally good player. Like all the way through his college career at Ohio State into the NFL with the 49ers, dominant pass rusher, good against the run, absolutely incredible player.
Yeah, I think those are the right picks, and you mentioned before, right? I think it's about 5 players for 4 spots in this game. So, who are those last 2 players, Sam? It's Max Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders, TJ Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think those are the top 5 edge rushers, so there's 1 spot left. And this is where I'm gonna extend the olive branch to Pittsburgh Steelers fans.
Oh.
This was, when we were at PFF, it was like against our contract. You can't say anything nice about TJ Watt. That's a joke, by the way. It's not real. I'll take TJ Watt. Extending the olive branch to TJ Watt. My apologies to Max Crosby. I think they're both right there together. The criticism from a down-to-down advanced analytics perspective on TJ Watt is maybe his pass rush win rate isn't as high, or he's not as dominant in his wins, but he just gets sacks. But there's something to, he wins his one-on-ones, he finishes, he has a knack for doing it at the right time. The same thing I said about Myles Garrett facing left tackles. Does TJ Watt have a little advantage going up against right tackles more often? I think he does. Max Crosby has generally that same advantage. Nick Bosa does it often as well, so it's not exclusive. But look, there's something to TJ Watt, his ability to rush the passer at key times. He's also a pretty good coverage player. Of all these other players, he does have to drop back into coverage more than everyone else. Micah Parsons did it early in his career when he was dabbling at linebacker as well. But TJ Watt plays a slightly different role with Pittsburgh, and he's got, key interceptions, pick 6 last year to help win a game, pass breakups. The dude makes plays. TJ Watt, still an elite player, extending the olive branch to our Pittsburgh Steelers fans.
Yeah, and Parsons might be doing that more this season as well in Mike Zimmer's defense, taking on something of the Anthony Barr role from back in his time with the Vikings. But you're right. And the one kind of thing is because there's 5 guys for 4 spots, in any given year, it could be a different 4, like maybe this is the year that Myles Garrett has a relative down season compared with the other guys, or maybe this is the year that, that the same thing happens to Parsons. Like it's tough. There's 5 guys, 4 spots, and in any given year, one of them's got to miss out.
All right, so linebacker's the next position. We're each going to take 2, so you'll take the first pick, and I will get the next 2. Who you got at linebacker?
I think Fred Warner is now the gold standard of off-the-ball linebacker in today's NFL. Incredible range, incredible speed, the ability to make plays in the pass game, but also be a really good run defender. He changes the game as much as anybody in the NFL as an off-the-ball linebacker.
Yeah, I think you got the right answer there. I mean, look, linebacker is a position, and the 2 guys I'm going to take, I do think it's tough with the advanced analytics, with a PFF grade, with coverage stats, whatever it might be. It's tough to really capture everything that a linebacker does. I think it's going to be directionally good. But I'm taking Roquan Smith and then JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from the Cleveland Browns. 2 guys, like Roquan Smith in particular, however you want to measure the value, when he showed up in Baltimore, that defense changed. For the last year and a half, that defense went from, they're finding their way under Mike McDonald's to they're getting there. And I think Roquan Smith was a key piece of their ability to disguise, their versatility. So Roquan, incredible athleticism, and he just found a really good system there in Baltimore. And JOK, I've just always had a soft spot for him and the way he plays the game. He reminded me of Troy Polamalu from an intensity standpoint, the way he flies around the field coming out of Notre Dame. And I think he has elements of that. This is a bit of a projection. I think there's a little bit more, another step to take, a little bit more consistency for JOK. But when we're talking impact linebackers and what you're able to do with those players, I think Roquan Smith and JOK are the 2 guys I'm taking here.
I find my team skewing a little bit old, but that's okay because we only need to survive the 2024 season. We don't need to worry about the future. So Demario Davis, as long as I only need 1 season's worth of action, that guy's still playing at an incredible level for the Saints. Really all-around linebacker, smart guy, great instincts, always in the right place at the right time, incredibly physical. I think until, again, we see evidence to the contrary, Demario Davis might be the second best off-the-ball linebacker in the NFL, along with Fred Warner. So I like my duo there in the middle of this defense.
Yeah, Davis like a Levante David, right? There's no real drop-off with age at this point in their career, and it's pretty special to see. We're going to go slot corner next. So I've got the first pick at nickel. I'm going Trent McDuffie. And I don't know if this is cheating a little bit, if he's going to play a little bit more on the outside with L'Jarius Sneed moving on, but McDuffie... Was he the most underrated player in the NFL last year? L'Jarius Sneed just got the big money, the big contract, playing press man on the outside. But McDuffie's ability in the slot to just shut down opposing receivers. They play a ton of man coverage in Kansas City. Loved McDuffie coming out of Washington, the way he flew around the field, just graceful movement that shows up in his ability to cover one-on-one. So love Trent McDuffie. I think we're going to hear more about him now that L'Jarius Sneed is off to Tennessee.
Yeah, and I really think you're right. He's been underrated for his entire career because coming out, it was Sauce Gardner versus Derek Stingley. And oh, by the way, Trent McDuffie's also around, if you need a corner later on. But honestly, he was as good a prospect as those guys, or should have been seen as such, given his college career. And he's been as good as them really in the NFL. Maybe not quite at the Sauce Gardner level, but certainly as good as Stingley from the outset and continues to be. So I think you're right. McDuffie is an incredibly underrated player. You claim that my pick now is cheating, but it just isn't. Kyle Hamilton is the best slot defender in the NFL. And okay, is he a cornerback, quote unquote? Maybe not, but who cares? He covers the slot. That's what I want in my slot defender. As we were
putting our list together, he was on my safety list. So as we were going back and forth and making our picks and preparing for the show, he wasn't even in my brain. If I knew that I had the pick, of course I was waiting for safety to pick Kyle Hamilton.
Look, don't blame me for your lack of creativity mentally. He is a slot defender, and he's the best one in the NFL, so I've taken him for my defense. That's my victory and your problem, frankly.
I know everything about Kyle. He's awesome. He's incredible. I get it.
And he reminds me a lot of Antoine Winfield Sr., not Antoine Jr., who's playing at Tampa Bay. Antoine Winfield Sr. used to be a tone-setting cornerback in the NFL. Really undersized guy, but you couldn't run screens. You couldn't run, outside zone or sweep runs to his side of the field because Winfield would shut them down. Kyle Hamilton does that, only he does it with like several inches more height and about 50 pounds extra in weight than Winfield used to way back in the day for the Vikings or the Bills. So Hamilton is an absolute force and a game-changing defensive back in the slot.
One of the things I love and hate in evaluating players, I love watching small sample size of plays that are just special, and I hate weighing them too much in my brain. But Kyle Hamilton had so many of those at Notre Dame where it's like, dude, he was on the other side of the field and made a pass breakup. That range is special. And then the Ravens moving them all around the defense. Never forget that series against the Chiefs where he, busted up every play, right? Blew up a screen, batted a pass, pass breakup down the field. On 3 straight plays, not too many players in the NFL can do what Kyle Hamilton can do. So I love your pick there, even though you cheated and took a safety in the slot. All right, Sam, you're up next. You get the first pick at corner.
Yeah, one of the easiest ones, I think. Yeah, good. One of the easiest ones, I think, at any position. Sauce Gardner is the best corner in the NFL. Corner, it's a really difficult position, I think, to evaluate year on year. The volatility is so crazy. You guys are going to have good years, down years, bounce between. We've seen that with various corners in the NFL over the last few years. But since he came into the league, Sauce Gardner has just been elite. Step one, start to finish, the top cover guy, elite in man coverage, really good feel for zones as well. Physically, everything you want. He's the number one guy.
Yeah, corner's an interesting position because I think the price tag on top corners has gone down the last couple of years, and I don't think it's a devaluing by the NFL. I think it's just a lack of players like Sauce Gardner. He's going to get paid a lot in the next couple of years. And my 2 guys, I think, are too. It might take a few years for one of them, but I got the next 2 picks. I'm taking Patrick Surtain, the second, and Devon Witherspoon. And so I think the young group of corners is as strong as it's been in years. I think Surtain production numbers took a bit of a hit last year. I think a lot of that coincided with the Broncos just being bad overall on defense. They had that disastrous defense, the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Pass rush was horrendous. Everything was bad. But Surtain, excellent man coverage corner. I think he's a tick below Sauce Gardner, but in that similar bucket. And I think, again, they'll both get paid quite a bit, like the top corners in the NFL. And then Devon Witherspoon, man. I mean, like my Kyle Hamilton rants, I'm all in on Devon Witherspoon. He did play in the slot a lot last year, but I think he could play inside. He could play outside. He's got Hamilton-like ability. We'll see if Mike McDonald actually uses that now in Seattle, having him blitz off the edge. But I love his tackling. I love the way he plays the run. I love his movement skills in coverage. Devon Witherspoon, everything about his game. I love it. Pete Carroll loved it. Mike McDonald's going to love it. So give me Surtain and Witherspoon as my 2 corners.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a projection and a sort of roll of the dice, but I'm with you. I really buy into what Devon Witherspoon can be this year as well. Surtain, I think, is a great example of that volatility we talked about, not coming off his best season. The Denver defense last year was a struggle for a lot of it, and I don't think Surtain had the best year that we've seen him, but we know he's a top-level cover guy and capable of those genuinely elite seasons. People like Devontae Adams say he's the best corner in the NFL. He didn't turn terrible overnight. It's just that cornerback is that kind of vulnerable position to those swings. And the other side of that, the flip side of that coin, is my second guy, Jalen Johnson, coming off a career year for the Chicago Bears. He was arguably the best cornerback in the NFL last season, maybe better than Sauce Gardner. But that was a clear career year for him, a new high watermark. And the question is he going to back that up again? Are we going to see the same thing from him in 2024, or are we going to see a bit of a regression to the mean? And I think you can make that case for basically anybody that you would be picking next. So I think Johnson is the guy you probably have to go with based off the most recent evidence we've seen from him.
Yeah, and Johnson just got that big money contract despite all those caveats that you're talking about. A career year that, didn't really look like some of his previous seasons. All right, let's wrap it up. I get the first pick here at safety, then you'll grab the next 2. I'm going Antoine Winfield Jr. So you mentioned senior early on, different positions, but Antoine Winfield Jr. last year was impacting games the same way his dad used to, man. He was probably saved 2 actual games for the Bucs with hustle forced fumbles, with making plays on the ball down the field. Winfield has just he stepped in as a starter on the Super Bowl team back in 2020 and just continues to get better. he got the big paycheck this offseason as well because guy's an impact playmaker. And again, the league is, there's not a lot of high-end safeties around the league right now. And Winfield, I think, is establishing himself as the top guy, at least one of the top guys in his ability to affect the game in so many different ways.
Yeah, so my two, I actually thought about combination as well. I was thinking about the two guys that I wanted were kind of free safeties only. And I'm like, nah, who would actually pair as a unit? So Jesse Bates for Atlanta now, formerly of the Bengals. I think he's one of the best free safeties in the NFL. Incredible ball hawk, great range, really has a good feel for when the pass is in the air, he's going to make a play on it. And then Minka Fitzpatrick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That guy is a do-it-all safety. He's a great all-rounder. He can, play all over that secondary. Maybe his best play comes at free safety as well, but I think he has some more versatility to him and can line up all over the place.
Yeah, I went with one of my favorite versatile safeties as my second option here. I'm going Javon Holland of the Miami Dolphins. We've seen him now in a man-heavy scheme with Brian Flores. We've seen him in Vic Fangio's scheme, playing more quarters, too high type of looks. I think Holland can do it all. He can play in the box. I think he's a good zone, short zone type of player, deep zone type of player. So he can play free. He can play strong. And I think the production that Holland has had his few years in the league, among the best in the NFL. So give me Javon Holland to pair with Antoine Winfield. Feeling pretty good about my squad here, Sam.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm loving my team. I think I got a bunch of number one players at their positions in the number two spot. So that feels like a win to me.
You trying to say that I left some meat on the bone with my picks?
Yes, you made mistakes and I capitalized, and that's the way this works.
Completely disagree. We would take you in a best of 7 here. We should sim this out.